kicking off our Appellation series for Kosta Browne 2021 vintage. I am joined by two incredible colleagues and friends that make up, as Neil said, the triumvirate of Kosta Browne when it comes to talking about our wines and sharing with our teams and bringing the message to you. This is Mr. Neil Bernardi, our general manager here at Kosta Browne. And as you all hopefully know, our winemaker, Julien Howsepian, here at Kosta Browne. My name is Regina Sanz, our senior estates director here at Kosta Browne. For many of you, welcome back. For some of you, welcome for the first time. What we love to do during these Instagram lives is talk about the wines that have been part of the allocation that has just gone live actually a couple of days ago. Answer some questions for those of you in the chat. I actually think I saw somebody that I might have worked with in 2007 at a restaurant. Hello, nice to see you. So we do try to keep an eye on those comments and answer any questions that you may have and talk a little bit about this release. So first off, for those of you that it's your first time joining our Kosta Browne community and for getting an Appellation series offer, this offer will be available to you as a guaranteed allocation until April 12th. So log into your account and purchase those bottles. I promise you will not regret. The wines are phenomenal in this vintage, and we'll talk more about those momentarily. Welcome to many of our new members. And for those of you that have been with us for quite some time, welcome back. And we know you have a lot of options when it comes to really quality wine in the world. So we really appreciate you being part of our community. And we hope we can share a little bit of the insights of who we are as KB and why we chose to make some of the wines and enjoy this journey together. So let's kick some things off. We're going to take 7 wines today. We have a special new addition to the lineup, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But let's kick things off with our 2021 vintage. Julien, if you can tell us a little bit about the 21 vintage, and if you can take us through, you know, always one of my favorites, the 116 Chardonnay.
Sure thing. All right. So yeah, the 21 vintage was spectacularly not very dramatic, which was great. So we've been dealing with lots of things lately, and in terms of the growing season, it was very smooth. We had a little bit of frost up in the North Coast in the spring of 21 that caused a little bit of damage, but which impacted some of our crop levels by 5 to 10% or so. But overall, it was a very smooth season. We were still kind of coming off of a drought, but everything went well in terms of fruit set. The growing season was warm. It was not hot. It wasn't cold. It wasn't too wet, too dry. It really truly was a pretty smooth growing season, which led to a very kind of seamless harvest season. And we'll kind of go through that a little bit more in detail with each of these wines, but basically it was on paper the way you kind of dream up a harvest, right? Especially when you work with lots of different appellations, as far down south as Santa Rita, as far north as Anderson Valley in California and beyond. Each of these growing regions, they ripen fruit a little bit differently, right? Some are a little faster, some are a little slower, some hang on the vine a little longer. But the really challenging vintages are the ones in which all of the appellations are getting ripe at once. Or, at the very least, when you have 2 or 3 that are kind of all stacked on top of each other. That makes for a very challenging season because the throughput is definitely congested. Whereas in 2021, it was smooth. We started with a little Russian River. We got through the majority of that in 10 days or so. And then we moved on to Santa Rita, San Lucia, moved on to Sonoma Coast, and then finished up with the Anderson Valley. I mean, that's like the typical, the growing, the harvest pattern. And so we were able to stick to that, and it was pretty clean. We didn't have any, major throughput constraints or any, it was kind of like a la carte, like, what do you want to do today? Let's do this. You had all the tanks at our disposal, so that was really good. We also happen to have really clean fermentations. Sometimes, it's hard to understand exactly why, but when I say clean, I mean like fast. There was no sluggish fermentations. Everything went dry in tank. We barreled down. There was no issues. It was just smooth sailing. I don't want to say it was easy because it still took a lot of work and a lot of sweat and you know, but at the same time, it was a good vintage for us. So to move on to the 116 Chardonnay, you know, I am a big fan of Chardonnay. We make a lot of Pinots. You know, we're growing our Chardonnay program more and more and more. You know, every year I'm proud of what we produce. I like it more than the previous vintage. We're honing in on the style. We're honing in on the sourcing, all these different things. And yet in 2021, I'm like, this wine is the best wine we've ever made for a Chardonnay of 116. I mean, it truly is, you know, really nice. It's super balanced. It's got this beautiful freshness. It's got concentration. It's got this really nice, you know, palate where it's very, very smooth. It's got good acid structure, It's got this beautiful balance of sweetness on it too. So it's just a really, really enjoyable wine. And, you know, a little hint of toast and lemon. I mean, it's a good one. I'm very, very proud of this wine. You know, for one, you know, you can't make great wine without great grapes. We've all heard that before, and it is very, very true. And we got some really, really good vineyards going into this wine. You know, we work with several single vineyards, El Diablo Vineyard, Bootleggers Hill, Kiefer Ranch, and then, you know, we also have Ziatoni Vineyard, Winner's Circle, Heinz, Kent Ritchie Vineyard. So it's a pretty star-studded lineup, and it's showing. So, you know, I'm really happy with this one, and I'm sure that it will be enjoyed by many.
I couldn't agree more. My favorite thing when talking with guests, both here at the winery and sort of out in the world, is oftentimes people will say to me, oh gosh, I really don't like California Chardonnay. And, you know, I sort of nod and smile, and then I say, well, you just try this really quick. And people are often really surprised. And I think it's, you know, we as an industry in the United States have certainly in the past, you know, going back 20 years now, probably became a little bit guilty of maybe being a bit manipulative of the Chardonnay grape in the cellar. And what I think, not we necessarily KB, but we as an industry weren't quite sure yet how to let Chardonnay shine and really tell its story a sense of place. And I think what we as KB have done, and you know what we, Julien and the team, especially in the cellar, have really let the Chardonnay grape focus and let the sense of place. I mean, some of the vineyards that Julien's mentioned, Bootleggers, El Diablo, Ritchie, these are incredible single vineyard Chardonnay, you know, that we even make single vineyard Chardonnays from as part of our single vineyard release. So it's really the best of all worlds. And before I hand it over to Neil, I have to say, Julien, you know, I think you're allowed a vintage that every once in a while treats you well. I think we can all agree we've all had challenging vintages and years in the past. So I was really happy to see 21 was like it really came in and everything sort of aligned really beautifully. And it was like a much needed respite from, you know, challenges prior. So Neil, I'll hand it over to you to, I'm gonna put Neil in the hot seat here for a second because there was a program that we did in 2020 where we collectively ventured to Burgundy for the first time, which was really exciting. And I think that sense of journey and discovery, you know, we're always learning from others. I'd love for you to sort of talk about how that journey maybe took us into not only some of the practices that we do with our Chardonnay, but also the decision to go to, drumroll please, the Willamette Valley, which is the next wine we're going to taste.
Willamette Valley, oh my gosh, cheers. Yes, inaugural release of a very new wine for us, but obviously a winemaking region that has a wonderful history of making Pinot Noir and other incredible varieties. But going back to what you were saying, Regina, you know, we have such, I think we're, you know, first and foremost, we're at Kosta Browne, we're wine lovers. I mean, if you look behind me, we have a selection of bottles that have inspired us and helped us to, you know, stay engaged and curious about the world of wine. And every day, you know, we come in, we're intrigued by something new that's going on in the world. And, you know, certainly Burgundy and that project really opened our eyes to a whole, well, literally a whole new world of wine that we've been loving and pursuing for many years. And you know, it goes back to our DNA of Dan and Michael and their progression from Russian River and Sonoma Coast to Santa Lucia Highlands to Santa Rita Hills to Anderson Valley and now Willamette Valley. So it's part of what we do to continue to explore and pursue great Pinot Noir wherever it's grown. And it's so cool to see a flight of wines that we're offering, you know, in a single release that can span from the Willamette Valley all the way down to Santa Rita Hills. It's a pretty unique thing, and you know, Julien and his team do an incredible job of bridging the physical and winemaking divides between all these places and learning from each and accentuating the best of all. So Willamette Valley has been an amazing journey for all of us. I mean, you know, like Burgundy, we've been fans of the wines being made in the Willamette Valley for a very long time. I mean, obviously there's a really, really rich tradition of winemaking going back to 1965 that mirrors what's been happening in California since around that time. And you know, we've been going up there and engaging with colleagues and tasting wines as consumers, but really becoming intrigued with everything that's been going on up there. And so the last few years, we've spent a lot of time, and like every time we've gone to a new appellation to explore Pinot Noir, we go first and foremost with a sense of humility, wanting to learn from the people that have made the Willamette Valley their home and have become experts. So we talk to growers, we talk to colleague winemakers, we talk to other producers and lovers of Willamette Valley to really understand what's happening and where the different pockets of quality and style are coming from. It's funny, I was thinking about it earlier today. When I was a kid, for a minute, I wanted to be a writer, and my mom told me, she always said, if you want to be a writer, first you read, and then you write. I think it's the same in the wine space, right? You taste, and then you learn. I mean, you have to bring in all the information you can. So Julien and I and the team spent a lot of time driving around in an old beat up truck named Goldie, and we tasted a lot of wines. We met a lot of people, talked to a lot of growers, and kicked a lot of dirt. And at the end of the day, Julien has crafted some really incredible wines as a result. So we're really, really excited to show them off.
And remind me, Goldie is a 1981 Chevy pickup.
She's an F-250, and I think she's a 93. I'm not sure of her vintage,
but
it's
noble steed.
A noble steed, indeed.
Noble steed. I think that the vintage and history of winery trucks is in and of itself such an indicative part of the culture that is wine. I had to throw that one in there because it's it gets us from point A to point B. It's like a beloved vintage of a wine, a beloved truck that got you to the vineyards. That's very cool to know that Goldie was part of this. My one quick anecdote of Goldie, I had the opportunity to drive Goldie once, and the bench does not move forward. So I had to both sit on a phone book and put my backpack behind me because my short little legs didn't hit the pedal. So, you know, very vintage, noble steed to be part of the journey. Julien, talk to us a little bit about your adventures in Goldie and sort of what your experience is working with Willamette grapes, you know, how Pinot Noir from Willamette Valley is very different from Pinot Noir that we have in California. And I mean, even across our appellations in California. And you know, even just talking about, to Neil's point, the distance between the Willamette Valley to Santa Rita Hills, which is the wine we'll taste next, is what, 2,000 miles? I mean, it's quite a distance, is it not?
I don't know the distance.
We'll fact check.
Yeah, we'll definitely fact check that, but it's rather large. You know, one good thing is that the Santa Rosa Airport flies direct to Portland. And it is quite a breeze to get from point A to point B. It's in fact, you know, a little bit harder to drive all the way down to Santa Rita. That's quite a long haul. And whereas Oregon, it's a little bit easier to get up there. But yeah, I mean, it's been a lot of fun. We've been exploring a lot, and we've been learning a lot. And to Neil's point, you know, met with a lot of people, got to know the growers up there. We have, connections just because the wine industry is like that. People work here, they move to Oregon. I have lots of former KB employees that now set up shop in Oregon. So the networking is pretty good up there. But Willamette Valley is an interesting place. It's a relatively large appellation, but there's lots of little pockets. There's a lot of different sub-appellations between the Dundee Hills, Yamhill Carlton, Eola Amity. There's several more. And so we really wanted to craft this program to encompass a really diverse, diverse sourcing program. So we have a little bit of fruit from almost every appellation. A, because we wanted to really truly make a Willamette Valley blend, and B, we wanted to obviously get to know the place. And working with all the different sub-AVAs is really important for us to identify with what is what and get to know the nuances of each place. Because when you taste wines from sub-AVAs within Willamette Valley, you really kind of have to pay attention, and there's nuances to each, and they're very different. And as a whole, they're very different from the California Pinot Noir brand that we all know of. And so that was really fun and really challenging. We had to learn what were the secrets of the trade. What are they doing differently that we might not have to do in California or vice versa. And so we studied quite a bit, we tasted quite a bit, and we crafted our first vintage in 21, and we're very, very pleased with it. It's got a little bit more of like this, a touch more savoriness, blackberry, kind of brimming with some pomegranate and other red fruits. But there's also like this hibiscus kind of note. There's like a little bit of like I don't want to say herbal, but it's like, it's not a green herbal, but it's like it's like a dried herb kind of sense to it, which is really, really well integrated with the fruit. And so there's more nuance on the non-fruit spectrum. We got a lot of beautiful fruit, bright fruit in a lot of the California wines, and they're all quite different amongst the different AVAs. With the Willamette Valley, there's other things going on as well. So I think it's really fun. We really had to put our thinking caps on when it came to making Willamette Valley wines, blending the wine, going from Gary's vineyard and just all that generous, beautiful fruit, and then going to Willamette Valley is like, whoa, okay, this is a different thing. And that's fun. That's what Pinot Noir is all about. And we've produced wines that are true to the place, that fall into the stylistic approach to Kosta Browne. And also, we've shared some of these wines and some of these fermentations with our growers, and we've gotten really good feedback. A certain grower in particular, I remember tasting with him, and he was really pleased that, that a brand from California, produced a wine that didn't outmuscle the appellation, with its own kind of DNA. It was respectful to the region, and it was a true showing of the Ribbon Ridge sub-AVA. And we also had growers that, we tasted wine with that literally was brought to tears just because of the amount of work that she put into her vineyard and all the stuff that she's done.
That was inspiring.
And then, yeah. And then to kind of come out of it and then be tasting wine, and and she's obviously tasted with other people, but the moment struck her as a really profound moment where almost 10 years of her career in the wine grape growing industry, and there she was, and we were tasting our 4 barrels, from that we produced from her vineyard, and it was really cool. So, it's a great feather to have in our cap, and we're excited that this is our first vintage. We just bottled our, we just had our second vintage also, so we're excited to see where the program goes.
You answered my next question, which I'm sure everyone is dying to know. Is this a one and done? Is this going on forever? Maybe I can punt it to Neil. Is this something that we're really excited about going forward?
We are. We're so thrilled, and we're excited. This is this is a wonderful beginning, and so we're looking to explore new vineyards and new sub appellations, Aola Amity Hills, Yam Hill Carlton, Ribbon Ridge, as Julien mentioned. So there's really such a wonderful world to explore up there, as there is in California and Burgundy and elsewhere. So yeah, so it's the beginning of something really fun and profound, and we're really excited to keep sharing new wines in the single vineyard release and then beyond then in future years. So yeah, excited to keep it going.
Very cool. Well, I want to frame my comment about, well, first off, I have a support fact checker here. So as the crow flies, the Willamette Valley is 800 miles to the next wine that we're going to jump to, which is the Santa Rita Hills AVA. It's a 911-mile drive. Thank you, Chip. The reason I wanted to frame that commentary to really show the difference in the AVAs that we can enjoy in the New World. And for context, when we were visiting Burgundy, I mean, some of these vineyards are only a few miles away from one another and they taste wildly different. Neil, in your journey toward MW, I'd love for you to kind of talk a little bit about some of the differences that you're seeing. You taste so much wine from around the globe. I know you're passionate about Pinot Noir as well. Talk a little bit about how the Santa Rita Hills, which is, I believe, the 5th release of this wine, differs from the Willamette Valley wine. And then Julien, if you can kind of tell us more specifically about the Santa Rita Hills, which is the next Pinot Noir that we're going to taste today.
Well, gosh, it's so interesting doing this tasting, and I hope that all of you out there have a chance to taste through these wines, because it really is an incredible showcase of what Pinot Noir is capable of. And I think it's also a really important showcase about where we're at as, let's just say, West Coast of California, West Coast of the United States producers in exploring the noble terroir of our region. And we're just at the beginning. We've achieved so much, but we're just at the beginning of really discovering the finer details of our noble terroir. Versus, as you were mentioning, Regina, that in Burgundy, there's been 1,000 years of cultivation to discover, what that vine does versus that vine. So it's really exciting to be part of that progression in awareness and understanding of noble terroirs. Santa Rita Hills is one of the it's one of the most profound appellations in California. It's small, it's windblown. The comparison between these two wines is dramatic, even though they're both very, very cool climates. The Santa Rita Hills, Julien and I talk about it frequently. California just is sun-kissed. And I think you can taste it in this wine, in that even though by comparison, Santa Rita Hills is very, very cool, it has this kind of cranberry, red cherry fruit and kind of crunchy acidity that I always find is kind of an identifying unique factor for Santa Rita Hills. Really, really beautiful, but much more fruit elevated versus the kind of more black tea, savory, herbal, Jamaica characteristics that the Willamette Valley shows off.
For sure. And Julien, shout out to Jack Trimble, who I wanted to take a minute to talk about. As Julien was saying, we have so many people that have come through the doors of this cellar that you and I've talked about, we should make a family tree someday of all the incredible people that have worked in this winery, in these walls, and have gone on to do incredible things. But Jack might have given you the best nickname ever in the chat just now. Julien the Jeweler is now the Jeweler. So shout out to you, Jack. Talk to us a little bit about this vintage specifically for Santa Rita Hills, and you'll kind of talk to us a little bit about the differences, in place. Talk to us about this wine specifically.
Yeah. So Santa Rita, is located about an hour and change north of Los Angeles, close to Santa Barbara, really, really close to Santa Barbara. And interestingly, this is the only transverse mountain range on the Pacific coastline. So the tectonic plates have twisted up the mountains over there. And instead of the mountain range running north-south, which causes creates a very nice barrier to the maritime influence of the Pacific Ocean, there is a stretch of land that is, the mountains are going east-west. And that's where the Santa Rita Hills appellation is located. So it's very, very unique. And it is the coolest Pinot Noir growing region in the state of California, despite the fact that it is, further south and quite close to LA. So it's a cool region. Like Neil was saying, it's very windy, partially due to the fact that it is the transverse mountain range. And these vines, they are clinging on for dear life. There's a lot of steep hillsides there, planted hillsides. Very, very windy. You know, I mean, I've seen some unrelenting, like just insane winds up there, blow your cap off and just gone forever because it is just, it's like a tumbleweed down the vineyard hillside. And meanwhile, the vines are just clinging on for dear life, just like, ah! And they produce some interesting wines. So, you know, very bright red fruit, nice, strong acid profile, definitely still good concentration, you know, a little bit more elegant, a little bit more, you know, a touch lighter on its feet, you know, really, really bright fruit. I get a lot of rhubarb and red cherry and things like that. But the 21 vintage, again, was a very, very nice vintage. We source from, again, a really broad, you know, source of vineyards, which is kind of, I don't know, I think it's a well, you know, built program in the sense that we're getting a little bit of fruit from everywhere because, again, Santa Rita is actually quite small, but there's a lot of little pockets throughout the region, and they show quite differently. You know, there's the, you know, we have a couple single vineyards down there that are kind of right in the center of the Appellation, Mount Carmel and Rita's Crown. And then there's a bunch of single vineyards that we're working with on the northern side, as well as the south side and the far west side, which is very, very close to the ocean. So, you know, some people, you know, pick up a little bit of salinity in the wine. They just kind of get this, maybe a little bit of that ocean breeze, you know, that little touch of saltiness when you're on the coast. But I find it to be very bright with red fruit, a little bit of fennel, a little bit of clove, and just a really bright, fresh wine with nice concentration and a good, like a really nice, you know, richness too, that balances it very nicely.
Salted pomegranate. So good. Delicious.
That's right. Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, let's move north to the Santa Lucia Highlands. And as I was alluding to earlier, this is the triumphant return. Not every vintage goes our way. It's Mother Nature. As many of you, I'm sure, know that sadly in 2020, we were not able to make any of our Santa Lucia Highlands wines. These things happen. But I'm very excited to say that the 2021 vintage is back. So Julien, talk to us a little bit about the Santa Lucia Highlands 21 vintage, the wine in the glass. I think this wine actually for our Appellation series might have the fewest number of vineyards that goes into the blend.
Yeah, I would say that is true. So we work exclusively with the Pisoni and Francione families in Santa Lucia Highlands, and they are truly some of the most professional growers and farmers that, you know, I know, that's for sure. And I've had the pleasure of working with. They're very, very skilled, and they're artistic, and they're passionate about wine. And so we source our fruit from 5 vineyards, from north to south. It'd be Rosellas, Gary's, Sobranis, Sierra Mar, and Pisoni. And Santa Lucia Highlands is a really, truly a beautiful area. You know, it's set back, I don't know, a couple miles from Highway 101 on the east side of the Santa Lucia Highland mountain range, west side of the valley of Salinas Valley. And it's really a stunning geography over there. But, you know, in 21, I was really, really like, I don't know, I guess aggressive in like just being like a little surgeon with the picks. And, you know, what that meant is, you know, I was working closely with Mark and Gary, and, you know, we were picking, you know, pieces of blocks at a time, you know, perfect to the fermenter size. And I wanted everything to go in concrete and wood. So I was like, hey man, I really want 3.5 tons of this block, you know, 2 from here, 1.5 from there. And we just kind of like went through the season like that. And they send a lot of fruit up north because the Pisoni family has their winery in Rohnert Park in Santa Rosa. So they're sending trucks all the time. They work with a ton of people up in the North Coast. So the trucks are you know, are full, and they're coming north every day. And so I was getting, you know, 3.5 tons here, 5 tons there, 3.5 tons there, and just very meticulously going through the vintage. And, you know, it was good. It was good for us. They liked it too. In terms of like how, you know, how aggressively I just attacked getting everything perfect. And yes, we were bringing fruit in maybe every day for 7 to 10 days, or, you know, maybe a day or two here or there with nothing, but very, very meticulous. And I think we nailed it. We made a really, really good San Lucia Highlands wine this year. And I'm very, very happy with it. You know, it's got a little bit of, I get like a little bit of like an orange or maybe like a little bit of a citrus vibe to this wine that would be as the defining character of what makes San Lucia slightly different than the others. So
like that orange rind kind
a
of.
little,
Yeah.
So plenty of red fruit,
note.
you know, plenty of, you know, red fruit, dark fruit, you know, a lot of that, like a little bit of the, you know, I'm escaping, the description is just escaping me, but I taught you the word, Regina.
Chaparral?
Chaparral, there we go. So,
That's one of my favorite words.
Yeah.
Try to use it 3 times in a sentence.
Yeah. But it's a really beautiful wine, and it's you know, it's kind of it's actually a perfect it's a perfect kind of middle point between Santa Rita and the Russian River Sonoma Coast from a profile standpoint. It's not quite as light and, you know, acid driven. It's a little bit got more richness. It's got a little more body, but not quite as much as, say, Russian River. So it's a really nice kind of middle wine in terms of its you know, disposition.
I love it. Well, as we move further north, Neil, you are born and raised here in Sebastopol in West Sonoma County, in Sonoma County. So we're going to move on to the wine that very much put us on the map, that is our Sonoma County Pinot Noir. For those of you who know the entire history and journey of Kosta Browne, bear with me, but I've got to tell the newcomers that the 2009 vintage of this wine that we're about to taste next, in 2011, which is actually the 10-year anniversary of the wine that we're going to enjoy now, we received Wine of the Year from Wine Spectator, and it created this incredible community of people that are somewhat at fault for the reason we all have to wait so long to enjoy these wines. But talking a little bit about, Neil, you growing up in Sonoma County, talk to us about just the journey that has been the terroir of this place, the size. For me personally, I talk to a lot of people about how important it is, proximity to the Pacific Ocean. Talk to us a little bit about that and kind of give us some of your thoughts on this wine.
Absolutely. Thanks, Reg. With the, you know, the reality is that as we were kind of talking before, the history of Pinot Noir in California is still relatively short, a few generations back to the 60s. And, you know, a lot of that early development was done on the Central Coast in the hands of folks like Dick Graff at Chalone and Josh Jensen at Calera. If you haven't tried those wines, they're amazing. The Russian River developed at the same time and in tandem, and I think actually really you know, folks like Dan and Michael were really important in developing and promoting and bringing attention to the Russian River. I think fundamentally the thing about the Russian River that is what makes it so distinctive is that it's just, the wines are just so delicious. They have a yumminess to them, which is inescapable. And I think distinctively yummy. I don't know, I'm sure that there's more, you know, a salted pomegranate was pretty good, but distinctively yummy. I think maybe,
I like that. That definitely, Sonoma Coast Pinot Noir from Kosta Browne is distinctively yummy. Yeah, yep, I'm writing that down.
Yeah, but Russian River Sonoma Coast, like these wines are they have such a deliciousness factor to them, and yet are refined, and yet are differentiated. And I think, as we were talking about, you know, before, you know, the work that Julien and his team do and the vineyard teams do to really farm and learn from their farming in our estate vineyards and our and making wine from those grapes is really pushing the boundaries of what we know and what we can do in each of those appellations. And so as we discover more and more and learn more and more and more, you know, whether it's oak combination or fermentation vessel, or, you know, Julien's work on whole cluster fermentation and in the appropriate quantities in the appropriate place, we're continuing to refine and elevate the quality of the wines that are coming from all these different places. So this wine is incredible. It's just, it has a black tea character, has the cherry, it's really, and for a wine that's relatively young and you know, new to bottle, it's delicious. Like, it's really expressing itself well now, which I think speaks well for the next few years to come.
The unicorn mentality that I talk to a lot of people about this is in order, and this is such a testament to not only, as Neil was saying, our vineyard teams and also Julien and the winemaking team in the cellar, is to 99% of all wines made are consumed within the first year of release from the winery. And in order to make a wine that tastes really delicious right when the cork is popped, but also will stand the test of time for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, it is a really hard proposition to do, because you sort of think about what are the elements that could do that. And to me, it's tannin and acid, and that sort of freshness and that brightness. I think, the Sonoma Coast is consistently year in and year out, doesn't shy away from that tannin profile, but there is this lifted acidity that I think is very much the decision to be working with vineyards that have a cooling influence, for example, from the Pacific Ocean, that allow a little bit of that retaining of acidity to kind of keep that freshness that will let it age. So Julien, I'm going to hand it over to you. Talk to us a little bit about kind of the philosophy there when it comes to aging, how to preserve that in the cellar, and so as we talk about maybe taking the best, which is the Russian 21 Russian River Pinot Noir.
Sure.
No pressure. Just talk about how
yes.
to be a winemaker. Do it.
Yeah. So, it's the Holy Grail. It's the how do you make a wine that tastes great, upon release, as well as aging very, very well, because we know that people like to enjoy our wines young, and there's people who like to enjoy them after 2 or 3 years. I meet a lot of people who are longtime list members, which is something that we're very, very grateful for, is the people who have been supporting us for a long time, and they're like, oh, I'm drinking the 14s right now, and you're like, nice, like you are patient. I like it. Those wines are probably singing right now. I mean, we do check in on these older vintages from time to time, of course, but we gotta try to do both at once, and so how do we do that? It's all about precision. It's about picking the fruit at the right time. It's about finding a wine that's really, really balanced. And I would say that I agree with you, Regina. Having a sufficient amount of acidity and tannin is very important for the ageability of wine. Everything's just got to be in balance of one another. I feel like sometimes I think about perhaps a house that doesn't have enough like 2x4s holding it up, or like something that's basically, if you've got too much of one thing but not enough of another, and it doesn't really support itself, then you're going to get something that sags and eventually sags and sags and then just kind of ends up in a heap on the ground. It's just kind of the same way with wine. You have to have enough structure, tannin, you have to have enough acidity, you have to have enough fruit. The fruit and the juiciness are kind of considered to be like a little bit of the stuffing, like a little bit of the warmth and the feeling and the body of the wine. And to get all those things together, it's an art. I mean, we work with wood fermenters, concrete fermenters, stainless steel, of course. Having the right oak barrels, taking good care of them, minimal sulfur. All those different things really, prepare the wine for its life in bottle, as well as, the thing that I'm particularly proud of, but also I really enjoyed the challenge, is the native fermentations. That adds a little bit of nuance to the wine that's going to give it a little bit of a distinct character, and all those things add up. And then, of course, the people who are making it. I mean, we have a very, very dedicated team, a lot of really strong workers they're as passionate about winemaking as we are, from top to bottom, which is a rare thing to have. And they're busting their tails every day. They're making all the little decisions right, and when no one's looking, they're doing the right thing, and because they care and they believe in what we're doing. So all of those things come together and make an incredible product that we're all very proud of. And we make a lot of different wines too. We like to drink our wines. We have a lot to choose from, which is great. So the Russian River.
Go ahead.
Yes.
I was going to say, it was perfect as you were saying that, because you can quite literally see some of the cellar team behind you in the small lot fermentation room,
nice.
probably overseeing some of the next vintage of the Russian River. So take it away.
Absolutely. Yeah, so the Russian River, again, Russian River, I think is really truly a special place in the world of Pinot Noir. There's just this incredible generosity, this polish, this precision, this very fine fruit character that is, hard to find in some of these other wines. And we work with some really nice vineyards. I mean, our single vineyard profile, Treehouse Vineyard, Bootleggers Hill, Juicy Ranch, Kiefer. I mean, those are really good vineyards. And then we have also a lot of other supporting cast members on the vineyard side that is really, truly remarkable. So, we're pulling out all the stops to make really, really great wines. So the Russian River, there's just a kiss of, more refined fruit. It's just a little bit more, I don't know. It's tough to really describe, but there's something more polished. It's something, I don't know. It's a really stunning wine, and there's a little bit more body. There's a little bit more richness. It's a nice wine. It feels good on the palate. So, between the Sonoma Coast and the Russian River, it is our backyard. They are our signature wines. I find it would be very, very good.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. I think the Russian River, the very first wine basically that we ever made as Dan and Michael started this journey in '97, to then one of the more recent additions to the lineup, which is going to be the last Pinot Noir that we're going to taste today. Neil, I'd love for you to talk about this. The Anderson Valley, I know, holds a special place in your heart. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's partly where you kind of began your winemaking journey, at least with Deccan Portfolio. But I think even maybe prior to that is in the Anderson Valley. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Or correct me if I'm wrong. Timing there.
No, you're right. I lived there for 3 years and got to know the community really well and spent time working in the vineyards and wineries up there. And it really is a special place as a community. But as a winemaking region, I mean, it's really unique too. I mean, it has a lot of characteristics that make it unique. It's farther north, so it's quite cool. It's funny. It's a quasi transverse valley. It kind of goes northwest, southeast, but it has a slight mountain range. Whereas Santa Rita Hills is just open corridor, so that wind comes in. So, but you have a mountain range which kind of blocks it off as a valley, and so you've got the deep end, which is towards the ocean. Everybody says the deep end, and it's much cooler. And then you've got the Boonville side, which is a little bit warmer. And we have the incredible benefit of having some of the most stunning estate vineyards in the entire valley and kind of spanning the valley. Really, the jewel of the crown, of course, is Cerise, which is a wonderful estate vineyard bottling. And so it, and the Anderson Valley has a unique profile. I mean, like all the different appellations we're talking about, we wouldn't make them if they didn't have something really distinctive to say. And the Anderson Valley, it's funny, we always kind of say that the Anderson Valley falls geographically between the Russian River and the Willamette Valley. And I think from a stylistic standpoint, this wine really reflects that in its character and flavor. It has the warmth, the richness, the fruit, the intensity of Russian River, but also some of that savory character, that kind of rustic tannin character that you sometimes get in the Willamette Valley. So I think it's another incredible appellation in California.
True or false, Neil? From 3 years of living in the Anderson Valley, do you speak Bootling? And tell us what that is.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so for a long period of time, thank you, Reg. I appreciate that. I know a couple words. Harp Bootling a little bit.
Oh. What does that mean?
Yeah. The one word I remember is Applehead is a girlfriend. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Horn of Zeus, I think, is like, yeah, ball horning means you're drinking well. So we're ball horning together here with this wine.
Okay.
Yeah. No, it's actually a amazing story. Yeah, no, it's a bizarre story if you ever, Wikipedia it, because it for a long period of time it was cut off from the interior, and you could only access it for mostly logging and sheep raising purposes, pasture purposes, as kind of it supplied essential resources for San Francisco being built and rebuilt from the 1849 and beyond. And it was only after a long period of time that area was opened up with a road, a brand new innovation that really opened it up to the outside world. But no, today it's a unique spot. I recommend it highly for everybody who's been to Napa and then you've been to Sonoma. You got to go check out, some of these other appellations like Anderson Valley, Santa Rita Hills, Santa Lucia Highlands. They're really magical.
And I think my connectivity popped out, but Bunt, as I was sort of teasing Neil, is actually a language. It's like a local language in the area, right? That, it's near and dear to the heart. If you visit Anderson Valley, maybe you can learn some Buntlang and come back and share it with us in the comments for sure. Alrighty, Julien, talk to us a little bit about this last wine of the lineup, which is the 2021 Anderson Valley. I'd love for you to just sort of take us through it relative and sort of any of the wines today that are really singing and favorites. But I know there's always the question. So talk to us a little bit about the today.
Yeah. So, the Anderson Valley is certainly a unique appellation. The wines that come out of there are definitely a little bit more rustic, and, when we say rustic, I think that mainly refers to the fact that there's a little bit more tannin on it. So you're going to feel the presence of the physical part of the wine a little bit more. But they're very soft, they're nicely integrated. And they have a little bit more of like a blue fruit and a dark fruit component. So, a little bit more of like a burley wine, but still very refined. We're talking Pinot Noir here. We're not talking, Cabernet or anything like that. So very refined, but definitely on the spectrum, it's going to have a little bit more of the physical kind of tannin presence. It's, mostly comprised of Cerise Vineyard, a little bit of Gowan Creek, and Canez and some other blocks that we have up there. And it's a late ripener. It's always the last wine or the last grapes to be picked. And which is nice because it's something that you kind of, in a way you don't have to be stretched into the north until the second half of the vintage in terms of just paying very, very close attention to when it's going to get ripe. And, to be honest, it doesn't get extremely ripe either, right? I mean, like just in general, we're picking this in October, maybe at the beginning of October as the last little bit of fruit that we bring in, and it's barely reaching 24 bricks, and that's fine. It's just the way it is. It's a very slow ripening season. It doesn't get very warm up there. Most of the fruit that we get is hillside, and it's makes for a unique wine. So I would say, gosh, I'm looking at 6 different Pinots now, and they're all very, very good. I don't think you're going to be disappointed with any of them. It's just a matter of preference in terms of, the different styles of wine. And hopefully you guys had a chance to kind of get a sense of what is what in today's discussion.
Well, thank you, Julien. A couple of quick comments to the comments that we've been receiving. Adventurous Hustle. The subject of wine, drinking wine is a pleasurable experience, and I'll leave it at that. And so the challenge of Ted Lemon, we've got an awesome relationship with Ted. As a matter of fact, Neil used to work with Ted at Literati, and it's really cool. Like we always say, the subject of growing wine, making wine it's a community sport. We are a community of people. Many of us have worked at other wineries and probably will someday. And you never know. So nonetheless, it's an awesome industry to be in, and it's definitely a community of people, and it takes a community to make really good wine. So any last final thoughts, Neil?
Reg, I'd love, you're a sommelier and a wine expert. I'd love to hear your thoughts on, pairing these wines. How do you think about serving these with food or, applying these to the table?
Thanks, Neil. I'd say every single one of the wines we've enjoyed today, the Chardonnay really stood out for me. There's so much bright acidity in that wine, which again, as I was sort of saying at the beginning, is something that I think a lot of folks assume isn't what you would find in a California Chardonnay traditionally. I think this wine will pair incredibly with every flavor of the rainbow when it comes to food. And I actually mean that. It could have a little bit, it could be a chicken dish, it could be a salad dish, it could be a raw dish, it could be a cooked dish. The acidity in that wine for me really does mean acidity. Typically with food, the thing that makes your mouth water, the reason why the squeeze of lemon over a fillet of fish is so delicious is it's bringing that acid to the fillet of fish. So that Chardonnay in particular just jumped out at me today as being an awesome food pairing wine. It was so exciting to taste the Willamette Valley wine. I've been drinking Willamette Valley wines and tasting them professionally for the better part of my career. And they always have this beautiful herbal characteristic that really takes you to a different world of food than you might find from California Pinot Noirs that tend to be a little bit more on the red fruit, black fruit spectrum. So that was also a really fun one to enjoy today. Specifically, I'm thinking some sort of mushroom dish with that Willamette Valley Pinot Noir, just like a mushroom bourguignon or like even a mushroom risotto. And vegetarian I am, don't tell my chef friends, but I love anything sort of mushroom forward. So, and that the Anderson Valley, I mean, the last one we tasted too, that Anderson Valley wine, you know, it's so dynamic. And I think Anderson Valley in particular does not shy away from tannin, but it doesn't do it with a swear word in your face, right? It's it allows that tannin to come through and really balance out with some more traditionally protein forward dishes. So I wouldn't be afraid to pair this with something that you wouldn't necessarily think of Pinot Noir to pair with. I wouldn't necessarily be afraid of pairing this wine with perhaps a steak dish just for its je ne sais quoi when it comes to that tannin profile. So thanks for the question. And with that, thank you everyone for joining us. I would be remiss if I did not mention that our incredible member services team is here to answer any Alex, Eric, Van, Jasmine, John. They are at the other end. We're really at the end of that phone call, text message, that email. So just email us a text, give us a buzz. Obviously, we're really passionate about what we love talking about. Members of our hospitality team, we have a number of certified sommeliers on our hospitality team. Paige, Chip, Brandon, Genevieve, Sheen. Everyone here really does love this. That's why we do this. So please reach out, please engage. We love it. It's a great opportunity for us to share our passion. And with that, cheers. Enjoy.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Regina.
Cheers.
Thanks, Julien.
Thank you.